I never thought a simple plate of rice could change my life forever. But that day, as I sat in the small roadside restaurant, staring at my half-eaten meal, something felt wrong. The food had tasted good at first. Too good. But now, my stomach twisted, and a strange dizziness took over. The owner, a middle-aged woman with a forced smile, kept glancing at me from behind the counter. Her eyes held something unsettling. That was when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. At the corner of the restaurant, near the kitchen door, a large pot sat open. Inside, half submerged in red soup, was something that looked like a human hand. My breath caught in my throat. I blinked, thinking I was seeing things. But no, it was there. Pale fingers, slightly curled, sticking out of the bubbling pot. I looked around. The other customers ate their food happily, unaware. The woman at the counter still watched me. A deep fear settled in my chest. What exactly had I just eaten? My hands shook as I dropped my spoon. My stomach churned, but I forced myself to stay calm. If I panicked, I might draw attention to myself, and that was the last thing I wanted. I reached for my water bottle, pretending to take a sip while my eyes scanned the restaurant. The other customers still ate, completely unaware of what I had just seen. I had to leave. Slowly, I wiped my mouth with a tissue and stood up. The owner's eyes followed my every move. She leaned on the counter, her smile now wider, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Ah, ogre, you never finish your food," she said sweetly, wiping her hands on her greasy apron. "The food no sweet." My throat went dry. I forced a small smile. "No, Mama. Sweet well. But I just remember say I get urgent meeting." She chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "You sure? At least take small meat before you go." She gestured toward the pot, the same pot where I had seen the hand. My heart pounded. Every part of me wanted to run, but I knew I had to be careful. I laughed nervously. "No worry, Mama. Next time." I reached into my pocket and pulled out some cash, dropping it on the table. I turned to leave, forcing my legs to move casually, even though my body screamed for me to sprint out of there. As I reached the door, I heard her say, "Make sure you come back, oh. People way chop my food always come back." Something about the way she said it sent shivers down my spine. I pushed the door open and stepped outside. The fresh air hit me, but my relief was short-lived. Because right there, at the side of the restaurant, I saw something even worse. A large, black bag, leaking dark red liquid. I froze. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the bag. The dark red liquid pooled beneath it, soaking into the dusty ground. I knew what I was looking at, but my mind refused to accept it. This couldn't be real. I looked around. The street was still busy, people walking past without a care. No one seemed to notice the bag. No one even gave it a second glance. Did they not see it? Or had they just learned to ignore it? I swallowed hard and took a slow step backward. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself to move. I needed to leave, needed to get as far away from this place as possible. But just as I turned, I heard a voice behind me. "You see something way concern you?" A chill ran down my spine. I didn't want to turn around, but I had no choice. Mama stood in the doorway, her arms crossed. Her usual fake smile was gone. Now, she looked at me with cold, calculating eyes. I tried to force a laugh. "No, oh, Mama. I just go my way." She didn't blink. "You sure?" I nodded quickly. "Yes, Ma." She stepped forward, her greasy apron swaying as she moved. "Because if you see something way no concern you, fit bring problem." I felt sweat trickle down my back. No, Mama. I no see anything." She stared at me for a long moment, then suddenly smiled. "Good." She stepped aside, gesturing toward the road. "Oh yeah, day go. But remember, my food's sweet well. You go come back." I forced a nod and walked away, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. But as I moved, I could still feel her eyes watching me. And in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. I was never coming back. I walked as fast as I could without running, my legs shaking with every step. My mind screamed at me to get away, but my curiosity was louder. What was in that bag? Who was that man? And why did Mama act like I had seen something I wasn't supposed to? I needed answers. I turned into a small street and leaned against a wall, taking deep breaths to calm myself. My stomach still felt heavy with the food I had eaten. The thought of it made me sick. Then, I heard footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. I didn't need to look back to know who it was. Mama's voice reached me, soft but firm. "You still stay here?" I swallowed hard and turned around. She was standing at the entrance of the street, her expression unreadable. "I just stay rest small," I lied. She nodded and took a step forward. Good to rest. But sometimes, good to forget things too." I forced a weak smile. "I don't forget, Mama. No worala." She studied me for a moment, then smiled again. "Ihen. No so." Then she turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I let out a shaky breath. I needed to leave this place. Now. But as I took a step forward, my stomach twisted in pain. A sharp, stabbing pain. I doubled over, gasping. The world spun around me, my vision blurring. My body felt weak, my knees barely holding me up. Then, I realized the truth. It wasn't just the sight of the bag that made me sick. It was the food. Mama had done something to it. And now, it was too late. My body grew weaker by the second. My vision blurred. My breath came in short gasps. I staggered to a nearby bench and collapsed onto it, holding my stomach. Sweat dripped down my face as panic took over. What did she put in the food? The street around me felt distant. People passed by, laughing, talking, going about their day as if nothing was wrong. I tried to call for help, but my throat felt dry. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone. I needed to call someone, anyone. But just as I unlocked the screen, a shadow fell over me. I looked up. It was the same man from the restaurant, the one with the plastic bag. He crouched beside me, his dark eyes unreadable. "You're not feeling well, are you?" His voice was calm, almost gentle. I tried to respond, but no words came out. "I warned you," he continued. "You shouldn't have eaten there." I struggled to sit up. What's happening to me?" He glanced around before leaning in closer. "They gave you something bad." I swallowed hard. "Pea poison." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small bottle filled with dark liquid. "Drink this," he said. I hesitated. "How do I know you're not trying to finish me off?" My voice was barely a whisper. He sighed. "I don't have time to convince you. But if you don't drink this soon, you won't be asking questions for much longer." I looked at the bottle, then at him. I had two choices: trust a stranger and drink the unknown liquid, or risk whatever Mama had done to me. And I wasn't sure how much time I had left. My hands shook as I reached for the bottle. My whole body was burning from the inside, my stomach twisting in ways I had never felt before. The man watched me closely, his expression serious. "Hurry," he urged. "You don't have time." I hesitated for just a second, then forced myself to drink. The liquid was bitter, almost unbearable, but I swallowed every drop. Almost immediately, a strange sensation washed over me. My stomach churned violently, my throat tightened, and suddenly, I felt the overwhelming urge to vomit. I barely had time to turn to the side before everything inside me came rushing out. I coughed and gagged, my body shaking as I emptied my stomach onto the ground. The man patted my back gently. Good. Let it all out. Tears streamed down my face as I gasped for air. My vision was still blurry, but the pain in my stomach was slowly easing. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand and turned to him. What was in that food? He sighed. Something that was never meant for you. I frowned. What do you mean? He glanced around, lowering his voice. They mix things into the food. Not for flavor, but for something else. Some customers, the ones who come often, they get treated differently. Others, well, they don't come back at all. A chill ran down my spine. Why? Why would they do that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He shook his head. Some things are better left unknown. I stared at him, my mind racing. The way the owner had looked at me. The way she had smiled. The strange way my body had reacted so quickly after eating. I felt sick all over again. The man stood up. Go home. Rest. And never eat there again. I struggled to my feet. But what about the others? People eat there every day. Shouldn't we warn them? His face darkened. Would they listen? I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came out. Because deep down, I knew the answer. Some secrets were too dangerous to expose. And some places, you should never eat from. I staggered home, my body still weak, my mind racing with fear and confusion. Every step felt heavier than the last, my stomach twisting as I replayed everything in my head. The food, the strange feeling, the old man's warning. What if I hadn't met him? What would have happened to me? By the time I reached my house, my clothes were soaked in sweat. I collapsed onto my bed, my head pounding. Sleep took me almost instantly. When I woke up, it was dark. My throat was dry, my body aching. I reached for my phone and saw a message from my friend, Kemi. Kemi, babe, you disappeared. I waited for you at the restaurant, but you didn't come back. Are you okay? I swallowed hard. She was still there when I ran out. Did she eat the food? My fingers trembled as I typed back. Me, did you eat anything? She replied almost immediately. Kemi, yes, why? I even bought extra rice to take home. The food was so sweet. But now my stomach is paining me small. My heart dropped. I sat up quickly, my head spinning. Me, Kemi, listen to me. Don't eat that food again. And if you still have some left, throw it away. I'll explain later. Just trust me. There was a long pause. Then, Kemi, what's going on? You're scaring me. I didn't know how to explain it over text. I just knew she had to listen before it was too late. I grabbed my slippers and rushed out of the house, my heart pounding. I needed to see her. I needed to warn her before she became the next victim. I ran as fast as my weak legs could carry me, my breath coming in sharp gasps. Kemi's house wasn't too far, but every second felt like an eternity. When I reached her gate, I banged on it like a mad person. Kemi, open the door, I shouted. The compound was dark, but after a few moments, I heard her voice. Who is that? It's me. Please, open. The gate creaked open, and she peeked out, her face lit by the dim glow of her phone screen. The moment I saw her, my stomach tightened. Her skin was pale, her eyes tired. She looked off. What happened? She asked, her voice weak. I pushed past her into the compound. Are you feeling okay? She blinked. Just small stomach pain, but Before she could finish, she clutched her stomach and groaned. Kemi. I grabbed her arm. We need to go to the hospital. Now. She waved me off. It's just food poisoning. I'll be fine after some rest. No, I said firmly. This is not normal. That food. Something was wrong with it. She frowned. What do you mean? I hesitated, then told her everything. The old man's warning, the strange feeling I had, the way my body shut down after just a few bites. She stared at me, then laughed weakly. So you think the food was... She stopped mid-sentence, her hands gripping her stomach again. Her face twisted in pain. Kemi, please, let's go. She nodded, unable to argue anymore. I threw her arm over my shoulder and helped her towards the road. We had to get to the hospital before it was too late. Kemi's breathing grew heavier with every step. By the time we got to the main road, she was sweating badly. I flagged down a bike, my heart pounding in fear. Hospital. Please hurry. I shouted. The bike man didn't waste time. We sped through the quiet streets, the night air cold against my skin. Kemi leaned against me, her body weak. When we reached the hospital, I half carried her inside. Nurse. Help. She's in pain. I screamed. A nurse rushed over, took one look at Kemi, and called for a stretcher. Within seconds, they wheeled her away. Wait here, a doctor told me. We need to run some tests. I sat on the plastic chair in the waiting area, my hands shaking. My own stomach still felt funny, but I was too worried about Kemi to think about myself. Minutes felt like hours. Then, finally, the doctor came back. His face was serious. You brought her just in time, he said. She ate something toxic. If she had stayed home, she wouldn't have made it through the night. My breath caught in my throat. Toxic. Yes. We're still running tests, but whatever she ate was not safe. I swallowed hard. My mind flashed back to the old man's warning. The food. The woman behind the counter. The strange, bitter taste. Something was seriously wrong with that restaurant. And I needed to find out what. As Kemi rested in the hospital bed, and 4 drip in her arm, I sat beside her, my mind racing. The doctor's words echoed in my head. Toxic food. I had to know what exactly was in that food. I pulled out my phone and searched for similar cases. To my shock, there were reports of people falling sick after eating at roadside mama put joints. Some didn't survive. But the most disturbing thing, many of these cases were never investigated. I clenched my fists. Was this just another case of food poisoning, or was something more sinister going on? Kemi stirred and opened her eyes weakly. What happened? She whispered. You collapsed after eating that food, I said. The doctor said it was toxic. Her eyes widened. That food, she whispered, shivering. It tasted weird. I nodded. I need to go back there. Something isn't right. She grabbed my wrist weakly. Don't. It's dangerous. But I had already made up my mind. I needed answers. Ignoring Kemi's warning, I left the hospital and headed straight back to the mama put joint. The place was still open, with customers eating like nothing had happened. The woman who served us earlier was at the counter, laughing with a customer. I took a deep breath and approached cautiously. Auntie, good evening, I greeted. She looked up and smiled. Ah, my customer, you don come again? You want chop? She asked, scooping steaming rice onto a plate for another customer. I forced a smile. Not yet. I just wanted to ask, what kind of oil do you use for your food? Her smile faded slightly, but she quickly covered it up. No good oil-o. Fresh one from market. I nodded, pretending to believe her. The meat you sell, where do you get it? She narrowed her eyes. Why you day ask plenty questions? If you know one chop, a beg make space for customer. I stepped back, pretending to leave, But instead, I hid nearby and observed. A few minutes later, I noticed something strange. A young boy came out from the back, carrying a black plastic bag. He handed it to a man on a bike, who sped off quickly. I frowned. What was in that bag? Then I noticed something even stranger. The woman wiped her hands on a dirty rag, picked up a spoon, and continued serving food without washing them. I felt sick. I had to find out more. But I needed a plan. I knew I couldn't just walk into the back of the Mama Put joint without drawing attention. So, I waited outside, pretending to scroll through my phone while watching their every move. The young boy who had handed over the plastic bag earlier came out again. This time, he was carrying a large metal tray covered with a cloth. He glanced around cautiously before disappearing into a narrow alley behind the shop. My heart pounded. Where was he going? I followed him at a safe distance, making sure he didn't see me. The alley was dark, damp, and smelled awful. Flies buzzed everywhere. Then I saw it. Behind the restaurant, hidden from the customers, was a small, makeshift slaughter area. A blood-stained wooden table sat in the middle, surrounded by discarded animal parts. But something wasn't right. I crept closer, holding my breath. The stench was unbearable. Then, my eyes widened in horror. That wasn't just animal meat. My stomach churned as I saw what looked like human fingers mixed with the animal parts on the table. My knees went weak. I covered my mouth to stop myself from screaming. I turned to run, but I accidentally kicked an empty tin can. The noise echoed through the alley. The boy spun around, his eyes locking onto mine. He didn't say a word, he just stared. I turned and ran as fast as I could. I didn't care where I was going. I just needed to get away. But before I could reach the street, someone grabbed my wrist. It was the Mama Put woman. Her grip was iron strong, her face twisted into a terrifying scowl. "Where do you think you're going?" she hissed. I tried to pull away, but she tightened her grip. My heart pounded. I had seen something I wasn't supposed to see. And now, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it out alive.